So we look forward. It's a good touch of the ball, and things are going well in the game. It's amazing. You suddenly feel to have that little bit more energy. So that's what we'll be looking for. Um, so, like I said, we'll see. It wasn't ideal. That's all I would say. But as I think I said at the weekend, we've got to get on with it, and that's what we'll do.
You play phenomenally well with 10 men on the field. How much do you do that and train and play 11 against 10?
I think some practices you might do more possession based rather than specific 11v11 and taking a player away. But I've heard that some people do that, and that's fine. But I think it depends who you're playing against and what formation you feel is best to adopt with that 10 men. It's something me and Chris have spoke about before and looked at different ways of doing it. And often the 4-4-1 that we went to isn't our preferred way of doing things. But we're looking at the opposition and the way that they were playing, what they were looking to do, and we felt that was the best way to go. So that's kind of what we stuck with. But trust me, kind of as it had happened just before half-time, at half-time, we're trying to scribble different ways to do it. I wanted to keep Leon Edwards on the pitch, and I think everyone would understand why. But a lot of the time, maybe different ways we might look to go, we wouldn't have a winger out there, but we felt that Guillaume was still a threat for us. And, again, easy in hindsight, it looked a pretty good decision at the end of the game, but it could have been different.
Trevor took his goal very well at the weekend. He's started all 4 games so far. Where are you on teenagers playing 40-odd games a season? Most managers say it can't be done, but then you get a Ryan Sessegnon that comes along and kind of bucks the trend.
I might be wrong, but I think if Trevor's fit and available, then he could quite easily do that. I look at him. Whether he has another growing spurt, sometimes if he does, but realistically, I look at him and what an athlete he is, and we've looked at his data, and sometimes you can just keep rolling him out there. What might suffer is the performances, of course, but at the minute I think he's in a good place. I'm sure if I said to him, look, Trevor, I'm going to give you a little rest, he'd look at me a bit gone out and be asking to play. So I don't think we're at that stage, certainly where I'm even thinking about that. As you say, I thought he took his goal, looking back on TV, was a better finish on the day. I thought it was a little bit sort of scruffier, but it was a good goal, and just give him a bit of stick this morning. I don't think he really knew what to do to celebrate his running to get the ball, which is a great intent if we'd have needed to get a goal in the last minute, but they were part of us, thinking just relax a bit and just gather his thoughts again, and then we'll go again.
You picked a strong 18 at the weekend without the likes of Teddy Bishop and Danny Rowe and Emir, and you're looking to bring in lone players still. Do players just have to accept that on occasions they won't be involved at all? Some good footballers left out?
Yeah, and some will accept that better than others. I will always try and give them my reasons for them not being involved if it's not blatantly obvious, and then it's how they react. And all I would say, unless suddenly you have to call on them people that sulk, we won't want around. We won't want. That's not going to force their way into a team. We want people to show that they're behind the players that are out there. We spoke about the squad, and that's the most important thing, not in individuals, not the 11 that take the field, the squad and staying together. But certainly can't run with 11 players. I don't think you can really run with 18. Not if you want to try and be successful, and there's not many squads out there that run with that. Certainly not at the level we're competing at. So it's part and parcel of football, and no doubt there will be injuries, and suspensions along the way as we go.
Have you got an ideal number that you want to work with in terms of a first team squad here at Playford Road?
I can change day to day, and I'm sure if you speak to the owner, he'll say it'll always be your 2 players short of looking a really good squad and team. But that's a manager's prerogative, I think.
Any further forward on your arrivals?
No, not over the weekend. I've got a couple of calls to make this afternoon to see if anything has changed. But as we speak, nothing different now.
Any interest in Cameron Carter-Vickers? His name was mentioned yesterday. I guess for obvious reasons. The lad did well here last year.
Yeah, and he's at a very good football club. I think people felt he had a pretty good loan spell here, so it's an easy link. But I'm not saying he hasn't ever been discussed, but we are looking at other options at this moment in time.
Just a word on Martin Waghorn, for obvious reasons, away to Derby this week. How did he conduct himself over the summer? When it must have been a tricky little spell for Martin.
Yeah, some people might think it sounds a bit soft, but I did feel for Martin because I think he's a very genuine person. I really liked him as a person, as well as a footballer. But I think he found it difficult. When he spoke to me the very first time, he said, "Look, I don't really know how to sort of handle this. I've never had it before. Nothing personal towards myself or Chris coming in or anything like that. He just felt that the opportunities that were being presented to him were, too good to miss out on. And, realistically, I understood that. And after that, we kind of almost had a bit of a laugh and a joke about it at times. He never caused an issue. And, I would love to see him do well, but not tomorrow night. And I'm sure he'll be, just naturally, he'll be thinking, I'd love to sort of try and get off the mark against his former club.
Tough learning curve for Frank Lampard, isn't it? At championship level, his first ever managerial role for whatever good player he clearly was back in the day. Yeah,
but I've just been saying there, it's far too early to judge him just because they've lost a couple of games. They won the first one. It was a tight game, perhaps could have gone the other way as well, but you've got to give people time. And, Derby have, big expectations on them as a football club. Missed out in the playoffs last season and desperately wanting that return back to the Premiership. With Frank Lampard, what I would say I've seen him do is bring some younger players in and maybe going down a slightly different route to try and get to that end goal. So, give him time and let's not be too critical. It is a tough learning curve. There's nothing to say that he will be anywhere near as successful as a manager as he was as a player. That's something to follow in truth. But as I said, everyone should certainly give him time, but naturally he's going to be one of the names in particular that comes under a lot of scrutiny.
A manager like you would never begrudge him that opportunity. Somebody who's done the hard yards. You've been at Ilkeston, Boston, Grimsby, worked your way up, and he's been parachuted into a very high-profile good job.
Yeah, if someone's going to offer it you, then what's he going to say? No, I'd rather go to non-league and start out. There might be the odd person out there that did do that. If it wouldn't have happened, but realistically, if Ipswich would have come calling for my first job, I wouldn't have said, "Oh, no, you're all right. I'm going to start off at Ilkeston and I'll see. Hopefully, get there one day." So no, I don't begrudge him. Like I've said before, I'm proud of the route that I've taken, and I do think it is a big ask because it's all right working around good people and picking up things, but when you're thrown in there, it is very different still. But no, I wouldn't begrudge him. I don't think he strikes me as that type of person that said I'm never going to be a manager unless I get a certain opportunity. It's maybe the odd character that's out there that moan about not getting interviews or not getting a chance in the league. If you don't get one, then go in non-league and try and prove your worth. And I never heard him do that, so no, good luck to him.
Particularly after Saturday, you must travel in good heart, expecting or hoping to get something from this guy.
Yeah, I think expecting is always difficult in this league, but you hope to put on another good performance. Hope to keep 11 men on the pitch, for as long as we can, which will give you a better chance of playing how you want to do. we sure we can do it with 10, so for a long period. If we've got that extra men out there, it should be a little bit easier. But Derby are a good team just because they've been beat a couple of times. I think you certainly see enough in those defeats where they've caused the opposition problems at times, and very expansive in the way they want to play. Some very good young players added to some of the more experienced ones. I think still got one or two people to come back into the team. So it certainly won't be an easy game, and naturally they'll be looking for a reaction after getting beat. I think they spoke about the first half, they didn't play well enough, were slow to get going, but second half felt that they were on the right track, and the second half, they won that 1-0, so they'll be looking to carry that on. We've got to guard against that and do all we can to impose our game on Derby.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Thank you.
I'm sure you won't really appreciate this being pointed out, but Ipswich have a very, very good record at Derby. Do you read anything in
They have or haven't, sorry. All right, okay.
Yeah, well, your response suggests that you don't read anything into these guys.
No, because I think sometimes there are sort of little trends, aren't there, that occur in football, and I think there was one on Saturday where we hadn't beaten Villa for a long time, and this was about 1:45 that I saw it going across the screen, which really built confidence up. And then at the same time, there's something where Villa hadn't won their first 3 games for a long time, so probably those two carried on to some degree. But it's we've just been speaking about a new manager. I'm a new manager for Ipswich Town, so I don't think you can read too much into it. Some people will, but I'm always a big believer in records are there to be broken. I quite like that. If a team, you come up against a team and they've won, 6 or 7 on the spin, I think they've got to be close to a defeat surely at some point. So why not us if we're up against them? So no, I won't read too much into that.
Have you crossed paths with that Frank before in your playing career, management career, or anything?
No, never. I think I was more kind of the club I was at, and even if it was the reserve league or whatever, you tended to go up against the more northern teams, and Chelsea wasn't a team that I faced, but obviously being an admirer, watching him for club and country, in an era when him, Gerrard and Scholes, and we talk about the current crop being the best that we've had. I'm not so sure that's the case.
Brennan's obviously touched on your different routes to being on the touchline together tomorrow night, but you'll be facing different challenges, I guess. He's looking for his managerial voice, working out how he wants to do it, whereas you're maybe possibly adapting it to Championship.
Yeah, and I think in a lot of ways, said not being that sort of stubborn, that you don't ever look at yourself and reflect and analyse, but at the same time I think I know what I am. We spoke about that, and the way that I act and want to conduct myself is, I'm not going to suddenly change that now, but I'm sure that he's got an idea of how he wants to be, but along the way there probably will be a bit of learning to go on. That's natural. I'm not kind of finished learning, but what I would clearly further down the road in terms of being in that position where you're selecting the team, you're standing up and addressing the players. That's something that I've had more experience of.
I was just going to ask you about Jordan Roberts as well, because of all the new signings, he's the one we've seen the least of probably. Is that a fitness issue, or is it just more to do to earn a place?
Yeah, more to do with it just earning a place, and while I guess JD's come in from a team that was playing League 2, got promoted, and Caden, but Jordan has come from a League 2 side as well. He's shown some things. We had a good chat the other day where we're looking at more consistency from him on a day-to-day basis. In the game against Cambridge, when he actually played as centre forward, did extremely well for the first half. But he was always one that was brought in truth, that we expected to be, he's not a project, so I hate that word, and he's not an experiment as such, but I expected it to take probably longer for him to get to where we want, if he does at all. But you know, there's a good chance he will be involved in some capacity tomorrow evening, and he just got to keep working hard on the training ground. And you know, we spoke again about him understanding the jump and the opportunity that's in front of him and making the most of that.
Best of luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Regarding Martin Waghorn, would you, in ideal circumstances, all things being equal, like to have kept him here?
It's a tough question.
Or was it that it was an opportunity, the money coming in was such an opportunity to kind of rebuild the squad that it was, you know...
I think, look, that's part of it. You've got to weigh things up. But the other thing I would say is, Martin made it clear that he wanted to leave. And once you get that situation, it's very difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, but you know, we had numerous chats during a short time together. And like I said, it wasn't a case of falling out or anything like that. And I genuinely do like the lad, from my experience and what I'd heard coming to the club before. And when you're doing your background, your research, no one would speak badly of Martin and say, great lad, a great character, really liked him. But the bottom line is he's telling me he doesn't want to play for Ipswich Town. And as much as we can say, well, if we'd have kept him, then he's got to get his head round. Would we still have got the best Martin Waghorn possible? No one's got a crystal ball, so I'm not saying we might not have. But there was certainly a period of limbo, and I've just felt he was at the point where, you know, the squad were there, he's kind of in the squad, or he played a couple of games, then I left him out. He was around, but he wasn't really here as such, and I think it was just the best decision for everyone concerned at the time. Now, if Martin hadn't have come to me and said about any thoughts of leaving, he'd have been in the team tomorrow night, I'm sure.
And obviously the opportunity to bring in three or four of the players that you brought in came by because of his departure. Yeah,
I mean that was kind of a secondary thing, because like genuinely I didn't walk in the door, I didn't speak to Marks or pull any of the players and say, do you want to leave? Because actually if we sell you, I can bring some more players in. I think I've said recently I've been able to bring a lot more players in than I thought and change the squad around more than I ever envisaged, because I expected to be working with those players, you know, and that includes Adam Webster. That's one that happened very quickly. But when you're doing your planning and think about what you'll need or what you'd like to do, that never entered my head that those two players, you know, wouldn't be here. And two of the, I guess, what most people would say you're better players. But again, I think I'm one, let's not sort of look negatively on that. Let's try and take the positive and think, right, we brought other lads in, and hopefully, you know, they'll step up and we'll kind of, in time, forget about those lads in the right way. Like I said, I've got no issues with either player, that's for sure. Didn't know Adam for long enough. And Martin, like I said, we had some conversations that were always pleasant in some respects, albeit, you know, as a manager you don't want someone telling you that you don't really want to play for your football club.
Now you said on Thursday that Emir might play in the 23s tonight. Is he going to be involved?
Yes. Yeah.
And Andre as well?
No.
And the other player, Bish and Danny Rowe?
Yeah.
Are they playing tonight as well?
Yeah, they're both playing, yeah.
So that's quite a strong side this season.
Yeah, Josh Emmanuel will be in the lineup as well. Harry Wright will be in goal. So we've got a strong lineup. Ben Morris will start up front. But I don't know, again, it depends where we are in the season. If I feel people need minutes. What I would say, anyone that's asked to play a 23s game, whether they come in that category or not, it won't be a punishment. Playing a game of football should never be a punishment. It's about, you know, it's doing it for the right reasons, and sometimes if everyone is fit and we get the squad that I'd like through September, we might see some, you know, really strong teams put out. But they will have to be judged on that week. Like I said, how we are fitness-wise, injuries, suspensions, all of those things. But for me, it's just another game, and the players and I'm not saying they are, these lads now, but moving forward, any of the squad need to understand it won't be a punishment. Or if it ever is, for any reason, I won't hide the fact. I'll just say to him, look, you're playing because you haven't been training well enough, or, you know, hopefully I'll never at the point where you think you play a game on the Saturday and then play on a Monday, which I had as a player, because we basically weren't good enough. So the manager made us play a reserve game on a Monday.
And a couple of young lads you've handed contracts to, Jack Lancaster and Bailey Clements, they obviously impressed you in pre-season and have been rewarded.
Yeah, no, I've been impressed with both those players from coming in. Jack, I think, was one of the players that was kind of given a little bit longer to make a decision on, but he's been really bright. He's got a personality. He's one thing, you know, he almost comes across as a little bit sort of cheeky chappy, but again, providing you see that happening at the right times, I've got no issue with that whatsoever. I think too many young players in general and what the academies are bringing through are almost kind of robots that lack any character. So I took to him straight away on that side, and then most importantly on the pitch, he's always done something in a game or in training that's impressed me. So he, you know, for me, certainly deserves that contract. And Bailey, again, as a left back, I'll probably be harsh on him in terms of critiquing his performances, the way he is, but he really impressed in the game. How did we go pre-season? You have to help me out. The big pitch. No, one of the other ones, the 23 games. Lowestoft. There we go. And just by coming on and passing the ball simple, and that sounds the simplest thing in the world, but it's just for me a young lad that gets the game. He understands it. You know, we've got some work to do with him physically, certainly, you know, but he's only a second year youth team player. So he's, you know, been rewarded early. I think that speaking to the other staff, they think a lot of him as well, and the way that he conducts himself and approaches his work. So again, another one that we feel deserved that contract.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck tomorrow.
Cheers.